Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission really is always to try and cut through all the noise out there,
Mhm.
to get behind the curtain, sometimes a very carefully made curtain, and really understand what's shaping things.
Yeah.
We always aim to go beyond just the headlines, past those surface narratives, and look at how a lot of these stories, well, they aren't just happening. They often feel quite deliberately engineered.
Exactly. Recognizing the engineering, the craft behind it.
Right.
And that craft, like we've talked about before in previous deep dives, it often brings us back to psychological operations, SKOPs. Remember we talked about them?
Yep.
Sort of like a Trojan horse for the mind,
Mm-hmm.
designed very carefully to, well, bypass your critical thinking, to subtly reshape how you see things, sometimes without you even realizing it's happening. The aim isn't just information, it's influence, guiding your thoughts, really.
A Trojan horse for the mind. That really captures it, doesn't it? The essence of this kind of info warfare. So today, we're taking that lens, that SCOP framework, and we're applying it quite rigorously to a specific discussion that's been doing the rounds online.
Okay.
It's a recent interview on the Expat American channel. The host is Joseph Stephen Rose, and his guest is Dmitry Orlov.
Ah, right. And what's interesting, maybe even a bit concerning about this piece of content is, well, it's not just two people chatting casually.
No.
From our perspective, looking at similar stuff we've analyzed, it feels like a prime example, almost textbook, of a specific viewpoint being actively pushed out, strategically put into the public conversation.
So our goal here.
Our goal, yeah, is to carefully peel back the layers. We want to expose the rhetorical tricks, the subtle ones and the obvious ones, point out contradictions, maybe factual errors too.
Kind of like a guide. It's exactly, a guide to what's really driving the message underneath it all. Because so often, what sounds like, objective analysis is actually carefully built propaganda with a very specific goal. Discerning the intent behind the words. That's the key.
Okay, let's dig into it then. We always start with the framing, right?
Yeah.
Because how something's presented tells you so much about the intent.
Always.
And this video, the title itself, is just incredibly revealing, almost gives the game away. To guide for arguing about Ukraine with your friends.
Wow.
Notice it's not framed like, let's discuss Ukraine, or different views on the conflict. No, it's explicitly an instructional manual, a step-by-step guide almost for arguing, equipping you to win, not necessarily to understand.
Yeah, that framing it's a huge signal right from the start. It speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It really does.
It signals a very clear intent. Arm the audience. Give them prepackaged talking points designed to sway others. It fits perfectly with that idea we talked about information being weaponized.
The whole turn your own mind against you thing. You get equipped to push an agenda, maybe without even fully realizing it. One of our sources put it bluntly, and I think pretty accurately.
What was that?
It said, this isn't a guide on how to argue, it's a textbook on how to lie. Yeah. And it highlights that instructional nature, this Trojan horse idea. Here it's subtle. Just calling it a how-to guide for arguing sort of bypasses critical thought. It presents the content not as a view to consider, but as instructions. Like the truth is settled, you just need to deliver it.
It's not informing, it's arming, like soldiers in a gift horse.
Precisely. Arming you with conclusions, not tools for analysis.
Right. And this how-to-guide approach, it isn't just a one-off, is it? It fits a pattern we've seen with the host, Joseph Rose. We looked at him before, didn't we?
We did.
In our deep dives, yeah. The Expat American host, we looked at him with the Andrei Martin-Vatanov conversation. And here he is again, positioning himself very deliberately as, what was it, an American sitting in Russia.
Yeah, that specific persona. It's crafted to imply he has this unique insider view. And his role here is really crucial to get. Remember from the Martyanov discussion, Rose acts, pretty openly actually, as a relocation promoter. He encourages Americans to move to Russia.
Right.
Now, doing that kind of work, especially in Russia today, given the state control and everything, it probably needs, well, at least some level of quiet state approval, maybe even cooperation. That's what our analysis suggests.
So he's not neutral.
Far from it. He's effectively part of a state-aligned project. Like we saw with others. Remember Konstantin Rashkov from Real Reporting?
Yeah, the independent reporter funded by RT.
Exactly. They launder state narratives through voices presented as independent. That phrase, content laundering, is key.
Explain that a bit more.
Think of it like money laundering. You take dirty money state propaganda and run it through something that looks legit, like an independent channel.
Like Expat American.
Potentially, yeah. It gives it a veneer of impartiality. Makes the state's message seem organic, grassroots, more trustworthy than if it came directly from, say, the Kremlin.
And this interview fits into that.
It looks like another public step in his journey towards Russian citizenship. He's been open about that. And this kind of consistent propaganda output, it's not just allowed, it seems to be exactly what's expected, maybe even required for that kind of alignment.
A public demonstration of commitment.
Pretty much turning his channel into, effectively, a public service announcement for the state's narrative.
Okay, so we have the framing, the host's likely role. Now let's get into the actual substance. What are Orlov and Rose actually saying? Because the specific narratives, that's where the patterns really show up, right? The recurring themes.
Definitely.
What's the first big one? The one that grabs you immediately?
Well, once you get past the title, the most immediate and probably most inflammatory claim is the whole genocide in Ukraine narrative.
God, it's
Orlov states it explicitly. He says Russia intervened in early 2022, quote, to stop genocide by the Ukrainian Nazis, armed and controlled by NATO and by the United States against Russian cities and Russian civilians.
just like that, stated as fact.
With absolute certainty. Designed to instantly justify Russia's actions, frame it as a rescue mission.
And this genocide claim, it's incredibly serious. What's the reality check on that?
Well, to be blunt, it's a standard Kremlin lie. It's a line pushed constantly since before 2022. But applying that reality check is crucial.
So international findings.
There are absolutely none. Zero findings from credible bodies, the UN, the ICC, major human rights groups. Nothing supports this claim of genocide. It's just rhetoric. Manufactured rhetoric to create moral outrage and justify aggression.
Whereas the fact is,
The undeniable fact, checked against international law, historical record, is that Russia crossed an international border in 2014 and again in 2022.
tanks crossing borders.
Tanks crossing borders start wars. Fairy tales about protection don't change that. The invasion itself is the violation of international law. You can't reframe that as protection against a fabricated genocide.
The intent seems to be creating moral equivalence, making Russia the rescuer.
Exactly. By invoking this horrific crime, genocide, without any actual evidence. It's a strategic play.
And we've heard this genocide line before in our deep dives, haven't we? It keeps coming up.
It does. It's a recurring theme.
I remember Martyanov in that interview using those huge unsupported numbers, trying to create this sense of overwhelming Russian power and Ukrainian desperation.
Yes.
It feels like the goal is always that strong emotional hit, something that bypasses critical thinking, makes you accept the premise without asking for proof.
Precisely. The repetition isn't just for reinforcement. It plays on something called the illusory truth effect.
How does that work?
If you hear a statement often enough, even a false one, your brain starts to process it more easily. Less effort. And that ease of processing, we subconsciously mistake it for familiarity. And familiarity often gets confused with truth.
Ah, so that's how these baseless narratives kind of seep in.
Exactly. They become harder to dislodge, even when they're factually wrong. They're not isolated claims. They're like bricks building a false reality around the listener.
Okay, let's move to the next big claim. This one strikes right at sovereignty, international law. The idea that Ukraine isn't a real country.
Ah, yes, that one.
Orlov and Rose push this myth, don't they, that there's no such country as the Ukraine, that it ceased to exist when the Soviet Union collapsed, just reconstituted through a piece of paper. Orlov even calls it a rump state, surviving only on Western money, denying its right to exist, basically.
It's a baseless claim. Honest, like our analysis calls it a child's trick. Trying to simplify a complex reality into a narrative that suits them.
So the actual reality.
Fundamentally different. Ukraine,
Yeah.
a fully recognized UN member since 1991, internationally recognized borders, multiple treaties guaranteeing its sovereignty. You can't just wipe a nation off the map with words because it fits your agenda.
And Orlov's historical take, that Lenin created a disaster by lumping Russian lands into Ukraine.
That's another insidious move, trying to retroactively undermine Ukraine's sovereignty and identity by twisting history.
It's information warfare, isn't it?
Absolutely. Selectively rewriting the past, distorting events, inventing grievances to justify aggression today, trying to erase a nation's legitimate history and present. It's dangerous.
And this rewriting of history, denying sovereignty, it ties directly into something huge, right? That post-Cold War agreement.
The Budapest Memorandum, yes.
Orlov talks about an agreement between Russia and Kiev, sovereignty for neutrality and nuclear disarmament. Then he claims the Maidan Revolution invalidated everything. Makes it sound like Ukraine broke a contract.
That's a massive distortion of one of the most significant broken promises in modern history. the Budapest Memorandum.
Okay, lay out the actual facts there.
The undeniable truth, which Orlov tries to obscure, is Ukraine voluntarily gave up the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal.
Third largest. That's huge.
A monumental act of disarmament, good for global security. And they did it in exchange for explicit security and sovereignty guarantees from Russia, the U.S., the U.K.
And Russia signed those.
Russia was a primary signatory, pledged to respect Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, existing borders,
And then?
and then Russia broke those guarantees,
Yeah.
unequivocally, violated international law, shattered trust, first with Crimea and Donbass in 2014, then the full-scale invasion in 2022.
So the idea that Ukraine's internal politics, like Maidan, could just cancel that international treaty.
It's absurd. It has zero basis in international law. You can't extract neutrality at gunpoint. And a sovereign nation's internal political changes, especially a popular uprising, don't just invalidate treaties made with other states.
It would wreck the whole system if that were true.
It fundamentally undermines the entire structure of international law. If one country can just ditch a treaty because of another's internal politics, then no agreement, no border, no sovereignty is safe. It's back to might makes right.
Dissolves decades of norms.
Exactly. And it sent a terrible message about nuclear disarmament, too. Really damaged non-proliferation efforts globally.
Okay, so we've got factual misrepresentation, rewriting history. What about the subtler stuff? Like, what about ism, blame shifting? That seems woven through the interview, too.
Oh, absolutely. The whole vibe of the interview, focusing on U.S. decline. Rose talking about his past consumption of Hollywood movies about Russia. It sets the stage.
Implicitly.
Implicitly, yeah. While Orlov doesn't directly invoke, say, Hiroshima in this specific bit we analyzed, the tactic of whataboutism is there. It's designed to create false moral equivalence, or just divert attention.
Go there.
Pretty much. Suggesting that because other powers, especially the U.S., did bad things historically, Russia's current actions are somehow okay or less bad.
But the analysis points out
That the history of the Pacific War doesn't excuse Moscow invading Ukraine in 2022. It's a deliberate derailment, muddying the waters by pointing elsewhere instead of addressing the clear current violations. Classic avoidance of accountability.
And a prime example of that deflection, the NATO expansion narrative.
Oh, yes. A perennial favorite.
Orlov suggests the U.S. plan was to destroy Russia using Ukraine, paints NATO expansion as this aggressive provocation.
Rather than what it actually is, a defensive response by sovereign nations choosing their alliances, often because they feel genuinely threatened.
So Russia is the victim.
That's the narrative. The classic victim costume. It shifts blame away from Russia's actions, the aggression, the war crimes, breaking international law onto some supposed deep-seated irrational civilizational hatred against Russia.
Convenient.
Very. It ignores the fact that NATO expansion has always been a sovereign choice by independent countries, often precisely because of Russian aggression, past and present, not as some unprovoked prelude to it.
It denies agency to those countries choosing NATO.
Completely. Ignores their right to self-determination, their right to choose defensive alliances when facing a powerful, aggressive neighbor. It's a major misdirection.
Okay, and then there's the corruption angle, a huge focus, almost obsessive.
Relentless, yeah.
Orlov blames Ukraine heavily, says the regime in Kyiv is structured around corruption, money laundering, even makes wild claims, like selling Western weapons to Mexican drug cartels.
And facilitating kickbacks.
Then he contrasts it with Russia, claiming corruption there's just in the background now. People go to jail.
Yeah.
Painting Russia as reformed, morally better.
Right. This uses corruption as a universal explanation, a catch-all excuse for anything negative regarding Ukraine.
A simple explanation.
Too simple. It lets them avoid any deep analysis of the actual situation, the war, the politics. Just boil down to they're corrupt.
And conveniently ignores.
Ignores the systemic, massive corruption within Russia itself, which is incredibly well documented, reaching the very top levels.
And the Mexican cartel claim.
Utterly unsubstantiated, purely designed to generate outrage. Paint Ukraine as this irredeemable criminal state, more dehumanization. It's classic discrediting through broad, unsourced, sensational claims while whitewashing your own side.
Building on that whitewashing, Orlov tries to justify his own move back to Russia. He uses his personal story, right?
He does. Claims Russia is pretty much a meritocracy.
Yeah.
Says his child has all these opportunities based on smarts and hard work.
Presented as proof, like a personal testimony.
Exactly. A testimonial for Russia being supposedly fair and equitable now.
But the reality.
Starkly contradicts that. Our analysis is clear. Russia operates as a kleptocracy and oligarchy,
Meaning?
meaning proximity to power beats talent. If you sit at the right table, you win. If you do not, you disappear. Access, connections, loyalty to the elite, that's what overwhelmingly determines success, not just merit in the Western sense.
It reminds me of Martyanov again, praising Russia while living comfortably in the U.S.
Exactly that dissonance. Orlov's comfortable life in Russia, which is his choice, doesn't somehow disprove the systemic issues. Presenting a likely privileged individual experience as a universal truth about the whole system, that's a big misleading leap.
Okay, last narrative theme, the Christian values angle. It's subtle, not a direct policy statement, but it's there.
Implicit promotion.
Orlov suggests Russian Orthodoxy is a way for immigrants to get into being Russian. Helps a smooth transition for people seeking a more communal life. And Rose asks leading questions about religion.
Yeah, framing religion as a cultural access point.
And this reveals...
It exposes the Potemkin village aspect of religion in Russia. You have a church hierarchy that, as we see time and again, blesses missiles. It functions as PR for the state, not as a witness to the Sermon on the Mount.
Right.
That fundamental commandment, thou shalt not kill, has been, well, not just forgotten, it was buried in places like Mariupol, Bucha. The actions discussed directly violate core Christian tenets.
So the promotion of traditional values, orthodoxy, it's strategic.
It seems very strategic.
Yeah.
Especially targeting Westerners. An attempt to attract those spiritual immigrants whose values might align with the Kremlin narrative.
Yeah.
We saw this with state projects like Welcome to Russia.
So it's less about genuine faith.
And more about cultural alignment.
Yeah.
State soft power. Using religion as a tool to draw in people maybe disillusioned with Western liberalism. The church, in this context, becomes another arm of the state, lending legitimacy to its aims, not acting as an independent moral guide.
Okay, so we've looked at the specific claims, often wrong, often misleading. Now let's talk about the way they deliver this stuff. Because the style itself is incredibly powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Deceptive.
Hugely important, yes.
Orlov and Rose, they present it all so calmly. Conversational, almost dispassionate. There's laughter, personal anecdotes. It makes it sound rational, authoritative, trustworthy even. And Rose's questions, they often seem designed to just tee up Orlov's more extreme statements, right?
Yeah.
Guiding him there.
That calm exterior is profoundly deceptive. Underneath it, there's this really dangerous rhetoric built to disarm you. It fits exactly how we've seen the Kremlin media ecosystem train its audience.
How so?
To switch off empathy, crank up the chauvinism, think only in binaries. Us or them, traitor or patriot.
And that's how you
defend the indefensible. The method is chillingly clear based on our sources. First you numb the heart, then you flatten the mind. That relaxed vibe, the laughter, it's not accidental. It's a sophisticated veneer designed to lower your guard, make you more receptive to the extreme harmful views being slipped in. It's like psychological judo, using your own defenses against you.
It is chilling, systematically stripping away humanity like that. And that extremity, that lack of empathy, it's right there in Orlov's words, isn't it? The chauvinism, the binary thinking.
Starkly evident. The dehumanization is almost clinical. He calls the Ukrainian government a terrorist cult. And vividly, rats in the rafters.
Not just strong words.
No. Yeah. It echoes that dehumanizing language we saw from Martyanov. It serves a specific, dangerous goal. Strip the enemy of humanity. Portray them as vermin, an existential threat. Makes it easier for the audience to accept, even justify aggression against them. Reduces people to rats. It deliberately messes with your moral compass.
And the binary thinking, that rigid us versus them.
Unmistakable. He draws a hard line. Ukrainians are subservient to Washington, and Russians are not. This is how you draw the line.
So simple, black and white.
Exactly. Simplifies complex geopolitics into good versus evil. No room for nuance, complexity, other views. It's a hallmark of propaganda. Forces you to pick a side without real understanding. Forces a false choice.
And tied into this, the lack of empathy, it's almost clinical.
Totally absent, yeah. He talks about Ukraine not as a nation of millions, but as an ethnic group that's done, predicts it'll just be an agrarian, deindustrialized, depopulated region, or a lawless, grug-fested mafia state.
He dismisses their identity, too.
Completely. Says they're just Russians who speak with a regional accent. This portrayal of this inevitable catastrophic end for a whole nation, delivered with such detachment, zero compassion. It's meant to make Ukraine seem hopeless. And, by extension, justify Russia's actions.
A narrative of unavoidable fate.
Where one side is doomed, so the aggressor is somehow absolved of responsibility.
And to lock this worldview in place, he uses that classic tactic, the secret knowledge posture.
Ah, yes, we see that a lot.
Claims Washingtonians don't know anything about Russia at all, and the little that they know is wrong. Positions himself as the only one with the real truth, the insider, discrediting everyone else.
Exactly. It creates this dangerous reliance on his narrative. If everyone else, governments, experts, media, is wrong, then by default, he must be right. He must be the only reliable source.
Cuts off counterarguments.
Precisely. Insulates the audience from facts, other perspectives that might challenge the reality he's building. Reinforces the idea that only he has the real story. Everyone else is ignorant, lying, or part of some conspiracy. It's about claiming authority where none really exists, pushing the listener to just accept his version.
Okay, let's pull this all together then. Look at the big picture. This deep dive, it really shows that Orlov's interview, like the other stuff we've looked at from Expat America and from Real Reporter, it adds nothing genuinely new to the conversation, does it?
That's a critical takeaway, yes. It just recycles the same old Kremlin talking points over and over, just wrapped in this calm, conversational, seemingly rational package.
Western collapse, Ukraine isn't a state, whataboutism.
All the familiar notes. The narratives are incredibly consistent across these different platforms. It really points to a coordinated strategy, doesn't it? Injecting these specific ideas into public discourse, using voices that seem authentic, independent.
Like Roshkov, the Real Reporter.
Exactly. His independent mask slipped when the financial ties to RT came out, exposed as a soldier in this info war while keeping up the facade. The playbook is consistent. Mask state messaging as independent analysis to get past people's critical filters. Highly effective.
And this brings us right back to Joseph Rose himself. His consistent promotion of these Kremlin-aligned narratives, plus his open role as a relocation promoter, it all fits a pattern we've seen, doesn't it?
A very clear pattern, meticulously documented across our analyses.
We talked about those state projects before.
Like Welcome to Russia,
Yeah.
launched by Putin, explicitly aiming to attract spiritual immigrants, people whose values align with the Kremlin story.
And Rose's platform, this Orlov interview, it fits right in.
Seems integral to that wider effort, this constant repetition, amplifying these specific propaganda lines. It feels like exactly what's expected, maybe even required, from someone publicly aligning with Russia like this.
So it's not just commentary.
It seems like more. It acts as a clear public step in his stated goal of getting Russian citizenship, where demonstrating loyalty and commitment through this kind of ideological output becomes part of proving his value.
His channel becomes like PR recruitment.
Seems to function that way, yeah. A PR and recruitment arm for the state's ideological goals.
So wrapping up, this deep dive wasn't really about agreeing or disagreeing with Orlov or Rose. Our goal, as always, was about spotting the pattern, the information manipulation.
Exactly.
It's about giving you, the listener, the tools to see this kind of influence, no matter the source, no matter how calm or rational it sounds at first.
Because the Orlov interview, like so many others we've picked apart, offers nothing genuinely new or insightful. It just recycles those familiar points, packaged carefully to hit emotionally, but always lacking new evidence, real facts, proper analysis.
That content laundering again.
Yes, state narratives dressed up as independent thought. It shows exactly how information gets weaponized today, used strategically to distort how people see the world.
So we want to leave you with a final thought, something to maybe chew on. In a world where information isn't just currency, it's treated as a weapon, where truth itself can be twisted, reshaped, deployed for an agenda. How do we protect ourselves, our thinking, our grasp on reality?
Yeah, how do we build real digital resilience? How do we make sure our minds stay our own, free from that subtle guidance, those invisible strings, those narratives we don't always see being built around us? It's a critical question, something for all of us to think about actively as we navigate this huge, complex, often messy ocean of information every day.